So we're going to look at some interactions with Mars and how we can potentially counter the hero or just understand how to play against it. So one of the must knows that everyone should know is his ulti is magical damage, and if we use BKB we can just get out of it. So that's relatively easy to know. You can pick something like Juggernaut or Lifestealer and pretty much do the same thing as what BKB can. But BKB ends up being really important against this hero, especially against his spear, which is magical damage. And if he puts you up against a tree, it's kind of like Shackle Shot. It's actually like even to a certain extent better than Shackle Shot. The projectile speed is really quick, and you can also use it in such a way where he can run behind you with Shadow Blade and throw a spear out and knock you back into his teammates, or even Blink Dagger in. So it's a really strong ability overall. But items that you don't really want to build against him are stuff like Halberd, because when he uses Halberd, his second spell still goes through it, and his first spell is magical damage and it still works. But his first spell, even though it's physical damage, it still goes through even though he's disarmed because it's a spell. But if we look at, like, say, Ghost Scepter, it doesn't do damage through it. Physical damage is blocked, but you still take the knockback. Say Winter Wyvern is the same. You pretty much still get knockback, but there's no damage going through. Which is okay, but like at the same time, like, what's the interaction here? You can spear someone back, so freezing them with Winter Wyvern isn't always the best, because what could happen is Wyvern puts a heal down, he just stands behind him and then spears you back the other way, away from all your team. So that's not always ideal with this hero. But ways that you can potentially do something is, let's say Mars uses his ultimate. Wyvern has actually quite a long cast range on Cold Embrace, so even though like Mars can do stuff like this and stun you after the Cold Embrace ends, it's still a relatively okay like way of saving your allies. Other stuff you can do as a support is, say, to buy Aether Lens so you get extra cast range. Some heroes that have a stun, say like Ogre Magi, can get his stun at further range to disable this Mars during his ultimate. But one of the really good ways of like countering Mars's ultimate and your ally who gets stuck in it as a support is to pick Venge, and you can just swap them out, which is really nice. You'll probably end up dying afterwards of the Venge or whatever, but at least it saves your allies, and it's really nice. One of the other really big counters to Mars, especially at later points of the game, even if he has a ton of items, is Midnight Pulse. As you see, the AoE of Midnight Pulse is roughly the same. What's really big about Midnight Pulse, it's pure damage, and it also pierces spell immunity. So even if Mars gets a BKB, it's still going to do all of this damage. And he pretty much like loses about 40% of his health or 50% just by standing at Midnight Pulse for the duration of his ulti. The other thing that's really apparent about Mars is his mana pool. So he actually gets his mana burned through very quickly. So if we level up, say, Mana Break here, you see how quick like his mana is going through. So if you blinked Abyssal Bladed him with illusions, or say Manta with Anti-Mage, it ends up being like really effective to burn through his mana. But one of the heroes that's having a pretty big success against him is Phantom Lancer, because of the fact that you can just get all your illusions. And like obviously you can do stuff like this, but the problem is sometimes that you can't figure out which one is which. And once he has no mana, he's actually really useless. He's just a meat shield. That's all he is. He just tanks health, and once he has no mana, he's pretty much useless for the rest of the fight. So you've probably seen Pudge being played sometimes, and one of the interesting interactions is Pudge hooks them. They get knocked back by they take damage from the area, but they end up getting out of it eventually. So you can actually save your allies with Pudge. Now, one of the other heroes that counters like Mars's ultimate pretty well is Riki, as he's been standing over here, and when Mars gets stuck, when Riki's in his ultimate, Riki can just use his ult and do damage back. So it's not only a really good way of like stalling out Mars's ult, but it's also a way of doing damage back. Now if Riki doesn't get caught in the ultimate, he can actually just save his allies potentially as well. So let's say Mars uses his ultimate like this, Riki can throw in a silence. The cast range is actually like better than that. You can see get the cast range in here, make him miss some attacks, and also when he's silenced he can't get off his two spells here, his spear or the other one. Now talking about getting out of Mars's ultimate, there's a few different ways. Like PL is obviously a really good one because you can Doppelganger, you Faceless Void's Time Walk, and you can also use Blink Dagger to blink in and out of it. But Anti-Mage's Blink and Queen of Pain's Blink pretty much interact the exact same way. But one of the other things that's relatively neat is if Mars uses his spear, you can actually use yourself and dodge the projectile. While you're cycloned, you're like invulnerable, but it's pretty cool interaction, and I hope you enjoyed this video. There's a lot of mechanics here and I probably missed some, so if you know any other stuff that I haven't done in this video, please tell me down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see more Dota content like this.